Situated on a narrow peninsula reaching into the Pacific Ocean stands a relic of a bygone era in American history. A wooden roller coaster nearly a century old that anchors the rhythm of this San Diego beach community. It's not just another roller coaster, it's a landmark, a heartbeat of sorts, the kind of structure that subconsciously sets the tone for everything else around it. Nestled between old school pubs that vibe like the setting of Looking Glass's classic tune Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, and beachfront resorts that feel quaint by modern standards, the Giant Dipper feels inevitable. Of course this neighborhood centerpiece is a 100-year-old wooden roller coaster. It's a perfect fit. Most riders probably take just one ride, laugh at the jackhammering roughness of this old woody, and move on to the next attraction or just go out to the beach. It doesn't stand out all that much, I'm sure, in the eyes of the average visitor to the area. And that's perhaps the reason why you don't come across too many 100-year-old roller coasters today. But this year, on July 4th, 2025, us enthusiasts get the chance to celebrate another entry into this rare club. And luckily for this enthusiast, this piece of living history just so happens to be within walking distance of where I've spent most of my life. Today, Mission Beach in San Diego is one of California's premier coastal destinations. The perpetually cold ocean waters doesn't stop visitors from all over the world from enjoying the expansive beachfront here, especially during the summer. In the 1920s, however, Mission Beach was little more than a barren stretch of sand, a narrow peninsula between the ocean and the bay, undeveloped, untouched, and full of potential. That all changed, however, when entrepreneur John D. Spreckles set his sights on turning this quiet sandbar into a thriving new residential and recreational development. Roads were paved, bridges were built, and most importantly, rails were laid. The San Diego Electric Railway brought people here by the hundreds, and to give them a reason to stay, Spreckles commissioned the creation of an oceanfront amusement park. Belmont Park, or as it was known then, the Mission Beach Amusement Center, opened on July 4th, 1925. The kind of Independence Day spectacle that defined the era. At its heart was the Giant Dipper, a wooden roller coaster built in just 47 days by a crew of craftsmen, carpenters, and dreamers. The speed of the construction alone says everything about the energy of the time. Booming optimism, industrial drive, and a thirst for entertainment in this newly founded destination. The coaster itself was designed by Frederick Church and Frank Pryor, legendary coaster builders of the Golden Age, who also designed its sister coaster that still lives today in Santa Cruz, Dragon Coaster at Playland Park in New York, and the defunct Tornado at Coney Island. The goal was simple: to dazzle, to draw crowds, and if we're being perfectly honest, to sell nearby plots of land. Walking around today, those are goals that were clearly met by our town's illustrious early developer, Mr. Spreckles. But in doing so, he and his collaborators built something far more enduring. The Giant Dipper wasn't just another thrill ride. It quickly became the centerpiece of this area and stood as the symbol of a Southern California city rapidly roaring into the modern age and putting its name on the national map as a place to both visit and call home. Back then, a ride cost just 15 cents, but the value of what was created still unfolding nearly a century later. Of course, not everything built, even with energy, passion, and high levels of craftsmanship, is built to last, especially an old wooden roller coaster pressed right up against the notoriously destructive oceanfront air. By the 1970s, the Giant Dipper had become less of a draw and more of a relic, neglected, weathered, and dangerously close to demolition. The park around it was fading, crowds dwindled, paint chipped. The Giant Dipper identity swapped out for the uninspired roller coaster, and eventually the awkward earthquake, until one breaking point when the coaster was eventually declared unsafe for operation. By 1976, both the Giant Dipper and Belmont Park as a whole were closed, seemingly for good, with threats of demolition coming by 1978. A pair of fires in 1981 seemingly sealed the coaster's fate as a sure relic of the past. I personally wasn't around yet to have seen it in that state, but the thought of this place, still and lifeless, it's hard to imagine. Fortunately, however, that possibility was too hard to accept by a passionate group of locals, historians, preservationists, and coaster lovers alike, who rallied to save what most cities would have bulldozed without a second thought. They banded together to form the Save the Coaster Committee because they knew something not everyone else does. You can't rebuild character once it's gone, and you can't duplicate soul. It is directly thanks to this group that we sit here today on the verge of adding a new centenarian to the roller coaster world, something only a handful of parks can claim. Their activism in the 1980s led to the coaster's official designation as a National Historic Landmark in 1987. By 1989, the San Diego Coaster Company had been formed in collaboration with the operators of Santa Cruz's Boardwalk Amusement Park to finally bring this classic coaster back to life. And on August 11th, 1990, after a $2 million restoration, the Giant Dipper reopened, boasting a brand new 6-car train. Our neighborhood landmark was back. And this time, people started to understand. This wasn't just a ride worth remembering. It was a ride worth fighting for. So this right here is it. You know, in today's world of innovative inversions and steel wood hybrids, all kinds of crazy heights, launches, this and that. This right here, this isn't gonna go viral on coaster channels, or it won't be anybody's #1 out there, but for what it is, for the history that it provides, the fact that it's still standing 100 years later, steps off the ocean, that deserves a little something. That deserves a little love. Especially for me, in the neighborhood that I grew up in, that I've spent most of my life in. It's just, it's feeling nostalgic. I don't know for a fact that it was the first coaster I rode, but it most likely was. It was either this one or the kiddie coaster over at Toontown at Disneyland. So couldn't say which, but definitely was my first wooden coaster. And I gotta imagine that having this here as the backdrop for most of my life growing up is probably a big reason why I love these things with the intense passion that I do. So, Giant Dipper, what can I say? It's a classic. And you know what? It's actually riding pretty good right now. They did some retracking work over the winter. You know, it's always gonna have its roughness, but I think you'll be surprised what this 100-year-old can still do. So, if you get the chance, it's a good bucket list ride out there. There was a time when most coastal towns had a bustling boardwalk, a place for Americans to soak up the beauty of our sprawling coastlines, a Ferris wheel, a funhouse, a community pool, a wooden roller coaster serving as a newly introduced technological marvel. But the world moved on. Land values skyrocketed, resorts modernized, developers sank their teeth into the endless opportunities along the coasts. And the boardwalk park, it started to vanish. There's still a few hanging on: Santa Cruz, Coney Island, Santa Monica, and of course, right here in Mission Beach. Somehow, a few of these cultural landmarks survive the tide of progress. Not untouched, not unchanged, but still there, still spinning, still screaming. And I think about that a lot. How we can build faster rides and taller structures, but we can't recreate the feeling of a classic beach boardwalk, no matter how hard you try. I mean, just look at how corny Pixar Pier is over at DCA. Not even the mouse himself could fabricate that feeling in modern times. Nope, I guess the only way is to just preserve it. And for that reason, I'm very thankful to those that gave their time, energy, and money to doing exactly that here at Belmont Park. Because on a personal level, all of that action back in the 80s directly benefited this young dude with a predisposition to extreme enthusiasm by the time I came around to the area in the 90s. So it seems fitting that I rekindled my passion for roller coasters just in time for the Giant Dipper's 100th birthday. Having the energy, tools, and motivation to creatively honor the first roller coaster I ever laid eyes on is extremely special, because in all reality, it's looking more and more likely that my time calling this area home is coming to an end. The Giant Dipper's pull upon me has ultimately given me the best opportunity to put way more intention into my last few months of living here. It sort of makes me wish that I could take a time machine back to the 1920s. Not forever, just for a few hours. To go ride the Giant Dipper in its first season, to see this place when it was brand new, sparkling with optimism and swing music and big dreams. To see my hometown in its earliest days. But then again, maybe we don't need a time machine. Maybe places like this are the time machines. All you gotta do is show up, go get in that station and ride. And thankfully, Still today in 2025, we have the opportunity to do just exactly that. So, happy 100th to the Giant Dipper, a legend in its own right here in San Diego, California. That's it and that's all. Look at that old school Woody. Still going strong all these years later. Peace.
One time for the underdogs, all the square pegs, never quite fitting in and couldn't care less.